Hi, I'm Greg with Fizzics, here with Jeff Plate, the founder of Asbury Park Brewery here in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Jeff, thanks for having us here today.
Thanks for coming. Cheers.
Cheers. So tell us a little bit about what we're drinking here.
This is the stout. This was the third batch off of our new brew house. Originally this was a milk stout, but after some market testing we decided to drop the lactose. So this is sort of a straight roasted stout. You get some like those coffee notes, the chocolate, and we carb it with straight CO2. So it's got a little bit of a lighter body than say a Guinness or some of the other stouts you might be trying out on tap. This is my favorite beer that we have on.
Yeah, I think it's mine too. It's delicious. So how'd you get into brewing?
Originally what happened is I had the concept for the Asbury Park Brewery before I had ever even brewed a batch. So I'm from Asbury Park, and in the mid-2000s a lot of artists and musicians started moving back here, myself included, moved to the area, and it kind of had this Brooklyn on the Jersey Shore feel. At the time the Brooklyn Brewery was starting to really ascend in popularity, and I thought there should be an Asbury Park Brewery. So I did a little homework and registered some of the intellectual property rights, and then decided, well, I should really probably learn how to brew beer if I want to open a brewery. Wasn't really able to get the funding back in the early 2000s. I was a lot younger, but I kept up the home brewing, and over the course of the next 9 or 10 years, I established some recipes that I thought were strong enough to try to take them to market.
How would you describe Asbury Park Brewery's approach to craft beer?
So our philosophy is accessibility. I think that a lot of mainstream beer drinkers are starting to diversify their choices, and what we want to do is kind of make that shift from a mass market beer to a craft beer as easy and painless as possible. So we make a lot of beers in the 4 to 5% range. We use a lot of recipes that are very traditional. We also believe in simplicity. So a number of our beers are single malt, single hop. Just very clean beers with a little room to hide any imperfections. So really we're going for the mainstream beer drinkers that want to try local and want to try craft, and we're trying to appeal to those tastes.
Great. So can you tell us about any upcoming projects you have going on here?
One thing that's interesting about Asbury Park Brewery is that we're very closely associated with the music scene in Asbury Park and the music industry. So all of our partners and investors are either musicians or somehow in the music industry. So our real primary thrust is getting our beer into music venues and really trying to be a part of the Asbury Park community as well as the music community as a whole.
It's a great idea. Beer and music is a great combination.
It always has been.
Do you remember the first beer you ever had on draft?
The first beer that I ever had on draft was probably a 31 degree cold Miller Lite. To be honest, I mean, I've been playing music in bars since, before I was even of legal age. So I was around a lot of very cheap macro brews. So that was sort of like, it really wasn't until I had a Guinness with that, with the head on it and the smooth and the cascading settling that I really was intrigued by beer. I always just kind of thought beer was a means to an end and not the other way around. But I think Guinness was probably the first beer that really ignited like a love affair with it.
What's the major difference you notice when dispensing a beer through the Fizzics draft beer system versus a traditional hand pour from can or bottle?
The foam control. That's the number one thing that I noticed. It was, it immediately makes my product look better coming out of a growler. I think that most people would agree that draft beer is the preferred way to serve beer. I certainly do, but it will lose its luster in a growler after a really short time. So to see something come out of a growler, which to me is sort of an imperfect method of delivery, to be so significantly improved by this was what really impressed me about the Fizzics.
Awesome. So last question for you. If you could have a beer with anyone living or dead, who would it be?
Rodney Dangerfield. The guy's the king of one-liners.
No hesitation.
No,
right.
I think about that a lot.
Well, great. Thanks for having us here today. I really appreciate it, and cheers.
Thank you very much. Cheers.